Curtis DIY.
So I want to talk about this, and this is kind of the touchier subject in a matter of this,
Yes.
and that without naming names, there have been a lot of people who have taken advantage of this time period and
Yeah.
happen to be, folks who don't look like the majority of the culture.
Yep.
And they've added their voice to the conversation. This is not one person, by the way. This is multiple people,
Yeah.
by the way. And it just seems like they lack a self-awareness of, for lack of a better term, hey, instead of saying like, I know I'm a white guy and I understand what the optics look like when you first see this, but by the end of this, you'll understand how tapped in I am, how much I'm willing to learn also in the process. How do you kind of see this in terms of the disconnect that some of the content creators and maybe even just commentators in general on the culture are having that happen to be in that category? Because this battle to me did more than just expose Drake. It exposed a lot of cognitive dissonance
Yes.
and just a lot of just lack of self-awareness in people's roles as it pertains to hip hop as a culture.
Well, I mean, it's a bigger question, right? Because it's there's the general question of how to be white in black spaces, and the main thing to understand is just that will always be like like never get comfortable, never think you belong anywhere, and always understand that you are a tourist. Like that's why I always say it. That's why I always quote Justin. Lack the context, lack the experience to properly contextualize. I can't believe it. I quote it every video. He'll chime in with it. Um, but yeah, so I think that the battle, because it was so ubiquitous, I think a lot of people just sort of jumped into it. And I mean, I'm lucky, right? Like I'm 47, and when I was 20, I was the kind of white guy where I wasn't in community with people who weren't white. I mean, barely at all. So, I didn't know how to talk. um, I didn't. Thanks, Justin. Courtney. So like I'm sure if I had a camera on me when I was 20 years old and Drake came out, I probably would have not known all the things that I know now. I probably wouldn't have
Mhm.
known to really understand my place is to not be comfortable. Like like there are places where I'm comfortable on my channel. When I'm talking about Radiohead, I have no problem because those are a bunch of pasty white dudes who overthink and make weird stuff. Like I know
Paranoid
what that's
Android.
like.
Paranoid Android
Yes.
is one of my favorite songs, and it happened because I was up at 3 a.m. one night and I saw the music video, the animated video, and I said,
Oh yeah.
why am I so intrigued? I never listened to anything like this. It was that, and it was Portishead Only You. They played back to
Oh
back,
yeah.
and I said, "Oh,
Wow.
yeah." So that's my Radiohead story. I'm sorry. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So yeah, so I think I mean, because obviously you're talking about What the Dirt, and I assume you're comfortable bringing up his name because I have watched.
I have
I
no
heard I have
issues
heard you say his name a
after a
few
4 hour
times.
stream today. I have no issues. I just didn't want to make it. I didn't want to do this to you because, like I
No,
said,
no,
I didn't want to
yeah.
bring anything. I wouldn't
So
want to talk about you, but
I mean,
this is kind of related to that
well,
conversation.
I did a video not about him, but about being. I call it the tourist guide to hip hop, which is like I might even try to make it into a book sometime, just about sort of like the ways of thinking about it that might be more respectful than the ways that you would automatically think about it. Um, but like it's weird because, and I was talking about this. I don't know how well you know Lil Bill, but he was interviewing me for something else,
Mhm.
and like there is like systemic racism is a real thing, and there is a degree to which white men, even if they don't think it out loud, they do sort of feel that everything belongs to them. And
Mm.
it's something that I don't like to admit, I don't like to say, but it's just true. That's sort of the way systemic racism works. Like the same way that men associate, think that things should just go a certain way. So it's not surprising to me that people have a hard time when that's called out because that's an uncomfortable thing to know. That's an uncomfortable thing to think. I don't like saying it out loud. I don't like it being true, but it's like, like you have to constantly fight against it and constantly think about it. Yeah. So I don't know if that really answered your question.
No, it does. It does.
But
And I have a quick follow up too, because we don't have to land here too long. But
yeah,
what advice would you give to those who are, because I do empathize, to a certain degree, which you had instructed earlier. I do empathize, getting it wrong when your platform is large has got to
yeah,
be a extreme hit to the ego, especially when you feel like you've done all the research necessary. Right? You feel like there's no way I've got this wrong, especially if you're somebody that is a perfectionist. I imagine that's got to be pretty challenging.
yeah.
What advice would you give to those that, their first knee-jerk reaction is to react, irrationally or to attack other people, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to not just him or any of that, but any creator in that space that is maneuvering and, wanting to do this the right way?
Just like when people tell you their lived experience, believe them. Like people don't lie about it. Like the first time that a woman told me that dudes would catcall her all the time. And then the next woman I'd talk to would say, oh, yeah, dudes roll down the window and scream stuff at me all the time. And then
Mhm.
the next woman told me that. And the whole time I was like, that's not true. Like, I don't do that. None of my friends do that. That's not true. Like, that lived experience is real. So
Mm.
if you are a white content creator and a non-white person tells you, hey, that wasn't cool, you just got to say, okay, I'm wrong. and if you don't know why, figure it out because they're not lying about their lived experience. There's no value in that. So that would be
I tried to find the perfect time in that right
yeah,
there.
no,
Yeah.
that's my favorite button. So like you just have to accept that. And I've had times like that, where I'm teaching and I might say something that a female student finds unacceptable, or like I talk a lot about trans music as well on my channel, and like
Mhm.
I don't always know how to address those conversations, but just and the thing is, people are very, very forgiving. They
Mm.
really are. So, I mean, I with the dirt thing, the Carlton thing, I couldn't. I after the Carlton thing, I could not see a way back. But truly, if he said, you know what, I was just really hurt and I just really couldn't handle it, and I lashed out and I revealed some really ugly things about myself,
Mhm.
but I'm really sorry, and then just like it stayed there, it would have been fine because you just have to
Completely
believe
fine.
it that you
'Cause
just
then
can't call. Yeah,
we move on, and that's the nature of this space and content creation, and that, you know, a lot of this stuff is like I had a reporter one time I watched who went viral because he had this very funny intro that he did that wasn't meant to be funny. And they said, "Man, how do you deal with going viral and the embarrassment of how people making fun of you?" He said, "Man, this stuff is like bubble gum. People will chew it until it lose flavor and move on to the next thing." I was like,
yeah.
that's so good. So good. Logic says, "Hey, professor, question on
Okay.
this topic. How does someone that is from outside the culture or how do they move with integrity inside the culture?"
Never think that you're inside the culture. I
Ooh,
I think that's the most effective thing. Like I don't think I'm inside hip hop culture. Like I love being in community with people who are, and I will do every Culture United I'm invited to forever, but I will never assume or feel like I am in, and people will tell me I'm in, and I love it. I love hearing it, but
mhm,
like never be comfortable. Like
mhm,
because you're in outs, and that's one thing maybe I learned from living in France, because like when you live in France there's different rules, different ways of doing things. When you visit Japan there's different rules, different ways of
mhm.
doing things, like it's a different culture. It's not ours, it's not mine. I don't
Yeah,
I whatever it was that went into making this art, they're just not experiences that I've had, and some of the experiences are good, some of them are bad. They're
yeah.
just totally outside. So yeah, I would say don't aspire to be inside. Be aspire to be in community. I think that's the most.
DIY.
DIYers, if you enjoyed this content, make sure that you hit the like button and maybe even consider subscribing. Come on, man. Stop being greedy. Peace.